everyone, this is Gina. Today I'm going to show you how to make this little red, white, and blue bracelet. And this is a Pondo stitch. It's a basic stitch. You can do it more units if you'd like, or you could just do one unit all the way down. I've been doing this stitch or a derivative of it with the last few tutorials that I've done. So you should kind of have a grasp of it if you're following me. But this is what I've done. And then I've made a little clasping with some little dangles here. I just used a lobster claw. You can use a smaller lobster claw than I have. This is kind of a big one, but it's easier for me to handle, so that's why I like that. You can do this in any colors you want too, so this doesn't have to be a 4th of July themed bracelet. I just thought since it is that time of year, I'd go ahead and do mine in red, white, and blue. But this would look really pretty in pink, white, and purple, or any of the pastels, anything that you like together. This would look really pretty. So anyway, let's go ahead and look and see what it takes to make this particular bracelet. Okay, so what I'm using for this particular project today is 3 by 2.5 Rondel crystals in 3 colors. Now, the 3 by 2.5 is in between, of course, the 3 by 2 and the 4 by 3 Rondel crystals, but all sizes will work with this. If you use a 4 by 3, then you will have a bigger overall look of your bracelet and you'll need to make less units than I do. If you use the 3 by 2, you'll have a smaller look to your bracelet and you'll have to make more units than I do. Just keep that in mind. So you can adjust between the 3 sizes of the smaller rondelles for this particular project and it'll look really good. You can also use this stitch with all seed beads. So you can use an 8/0 and 11/0, or you could use a 6/0 and an 8/0. It works out fine. Maybe even a 6/0 and 11/0. I'm not sure. I think an 8/0 would probably work better. But you can do this particular stitch with all seed beads, or you can do it with the crystals like I'm going to do it. So don't limit yourself. Then I'm using an 11/0 seed bead. This is a Toho, and it is the nickel plated. Then I have a couple of 8/0s out just in case I want to use them with my clasping. I haven't really decided how I want to do that yet, but sometimes I want 8/0s instead of 11/0s because I can travel through it more to secure my clasping. So I have a couple of those out. I have a couple wire guardians in case I decide I want to use those, and these are the smaller size wire guardians. And then I'm going to use a lobster claw clasp, about an 8mm round open jump ring, and 2 4mm round open jump rings. I'm also going to be using 10-pound Nanofil with this. You can also use 8-pound. You can also use 6-pound Fireline. And I have got a size 10 beading needle, and I've put on my beading needle about a wingspan of thread. We'll probably have to extend Fireline during this project, so I will post a video in the description box below that will show you how to do that. So when you put on your thread, just spread your arms out from side to side. Measure like you're going to fly away. Measure from your fingertips of one arm, the length of that arm, across your chest, the length of the second arm to your fingertips. That's a wingspan. Put that on your needle, and we will get started. Okay, so once you've threaded your needle, you're going to pick up 4 of your Rondel crystals onto your needle. I'm starting with my white color, so I'm picking up 4 white, and I'm going to bring this down to the end of my thread. I'm going to leave a pretty long tail to do my clasping with. Now, if you don't want to leave a long tail and work around it, then you can just leave enough to extend your tail. But I'm going to leave, about 6-8 inches, maybe a little more than that. And then I'm going to come back up through the first bead that I put on. So as you can see, this is the tail side. I'm coming up through this first bead. I'm holding on to the tail and the bead, and I'm just going to pull my thread through. And these will just pull down into a little diamond shape like this. Now we're going to sew back around this. So go ahead and go into the very next bead next to the one where your thread is coming out. So this side is my tail. I'm going down into this side. I'm holding on to my beads. I know you can't see them, but I have to hold on to them so as I pull my thread through, I can steady everything. Then I'm going to go through the next crystal, and I'm just going to do that all the way around, giving a small tug as I go through so that I pull my beads together nice, and then go into the next one. And now I am where my two threads meet. So my tail is here and my working thread is here. I'm just going to grab them and tie a knot just to secure my work. So now I have my tail thread here, and this is my working thread here, and I'm just going to sew through the crystal because I'm between them. So I'm going to go through this top crystal. Now I'm going to pick up 11 seed beads and go in between each crystal with an 11. So I have an 11 here. I'm just going to go into the next crystal, and I'm going to pull my 11 down between the crystals. Get you a little closer, and one more time. Pick up an 11, go from this crystal to the next crystal, and give a little tug as you come through. And just embed that little 11 between the crystals. And again, do that one more time. Pick up an 11, go into the next crystal, and pull the 11 between the crystals. And then one more time. Your tail is here now, so just kind of tuck it between your fingers and ignore it, and go into the next crystal and the next 11 if you can. It's at a funny angle, so probably just the crystal. Pull that down, and this is what you should have. Now I want to arrange it to where my tail thread is up on the top of how I'm holding this, so that will be the end of my project, and I can come through and sew it into one of the beads and work with it. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to go down into this 11 on the side here so that my tail is this way, and I'm going to work this way. So now I'm going to pick up red crystals. So I'm going to pick up 4 red crystals. I'm coming through the 11 seed bead here. I have 4 crystals, and I'm just going to go into the opposite side of the 11 seed bead, just like this. Pull my crystals down, and then I'm going to sew back through this, and as I do, I'll pick up 11 and embed them between the crystals. So I'm going to go into this first crystal right next to where my thread is coming out of the 11, and I'm just going to hold on to those beads and give a little tug, and then I'm going to pick up an 11 and go into the next crystal. Hold on to your crystals. My thread is in a knot. Hang on, there we go. And pull that 11 down. Make sure it doesn't twist and that it lays nicely between the beads. And then again, go into the next crystal with an 11 and pull it down. And one more time. Go into the next crystal, and just the crystal. Don't go into the 11 behind it. Now, in order to get these crystals to draw in like the others are, because we connected the 11 to the 11, we want to just sew through the crystals when we come back around. We're not going to sew through this 11. That's going to draw the crystals in like the other unit here. So we're coming out of this crystal, we're going to bypass that 11. We're going to go into the crystal on the other side of it, and you can go into the 11 behind that also if you can. If not, just go through the crystal and then go through the 11. Now this is how we are arranged. We are coming out of the 11 seed bead in the red unit here. Now we're going to start working the length of our bracelet this way. So Now our next unit is going to come out of this red one. I'm going to do another white unit here. So I'm going to pick up 4 white crystals. I'm coming out of the 11-0. On this side, I'm going to go into the opposite side of the 11-0 and pull the crystals down. Just like this. Now I'm going to sew through, placing an 11-0 between each crystal. So I will just go into the crystal closest to where my thread is coming out of, pull this unit together the best I can, and then pick up an 11-0 seed bead and go into the next crystal. Holding on to my unit, I just kind of pull it together. Then I'm going to pick up another 11-0 and go into the next crystal. Hold on to my crystals and pull my 11-0 down in between the crystals. Then I'm going to pick up another 11-0, and I'm just going to go through the crystal here, right here. I know there's an 11-0 behind it. We're going to avoid that 11-0. Just go up through the crystal, pull your 11-0 down between the crystals, and then sew right past the 11-0 you're connected to. So we're going to go directly into the crystal behind that 11-0, or on the other side of it, like this. Now, if you can, just sew through the crystals as we travel around this unit to get to this 11-0 on this side, so we can add our next unit here. So I just avoid my 11-0s. If you cannot, you can sew through them, but it pulls your unit together better if you don't sew through them. So I'm just going to bypass that 11-0, go through the crystal. Bypass the 11-0, go through the crystal. However, on this side, you can go through the 11-0 if you can get your needle in it, because that's where you're going to attach. But I'm just going to go through the crystal, and then I'm going to go up through this 11-0. Now that I'm coming out of this 11-0, I'm going to pick up 4 blue crystals this time. And I'm just going to go into the opposite side of the 11-0 that I'm coming out of. And I'm going to pull these 4 crystals down. Now you can see I'm not attached to this one, and I need to be. So as I sew around in each unit, I have been putting in 11-0 seed beads. Well, we have one here and available. So instead of putting on that one, we're going to go up through the crystal here and then into the 11-0 on this unit. So just go through the crystal, go through the 11-0 on the unit above it, and then go through the next crystal right here. And now you're attached. Now we're going to pick up an 11-0 seed bead and place it between these 2 crystals. So just pick up an 11-0, sew into the next crystal, holding on to your unit, give it a tug, and that's what that looks like. Now we're going to put in one more 11-0, and we're going to sew into the next crystal here. Now we're going to avoid the we're going to avoid the attaching 11-0s as we sew through the crystals all the way down to here, so that we can start our next unit. So we need to skip this 11-0, go into this crystal. Skip that 11-0, go into the next crystal. We're just working our way down so we can get to the 11-0 that we'll attach to. Now we're going to go through this crystal and the 11-0 on the bottom. And you'll know where you need to attach to, because we're working away from our tail. Our tail is here, so you know we need to come to this unit right here, and we will begin our next stitch. So what I'm doing is I'm doing red, white, white, blue. So then I'll go white, red, like that, just to kind of alternate my colors. And I'm putting my white in between each bright color. So I'm going to pick up 4 whites here, and I'm going to go through the opposite side of my 11-0. And I'm going to pull these down, just like this. And now I'm going to sew through the first crystal here, and I'm going to pick up an 11-0 seed bead and go into the next crystal. Then I'm going to pick up another 11-0 seed bead and go into the next crystal. And then one more 11-0 seed bead and go into the next crystal. And now I'm going to skip the 11-0 I'm attached to and go into the next crystal and the next 11-0. Actually, I'm just going to go through the crystal. But I know I need to make my next unit here. It's obvious. So I will go into this 11-0 here. And since I just did a blue unit, I'll do a red unit now. So I'm going to pick up 4 red crystals, and I'm just going to come all the way around to the 11-0. When you're putting your second unit on each new row, that's when you have to be aware of the 11-0 on the other unit that you have to attach to. On the first one, you just sew around it, putting your 11-0s in just like you have been doing all along. But when you put your second unit on, that's when you need to be aware of attaching the 11-0 that exists in a previous unit to the unit you're making. So now I'm coming out of this 11-0. I'm going to go through the first crystal here. I'm going to pick up an 11-0 seed bead, go into the next crystal, then I'll pick up an 11-0 seed bead, go into the next crystal, and I can pick up that 11-0 that I'm going to attach to too. And I can do this at once. For some reason today I am having issues with my thread. I never have this with Nanofil, but it's happening, so there we go. So basically what I've done is I put the 11-0 between these 2 crystals and slid through the 11-0 here. Now I'll go down into the crystal on this side, and then I'll bypass the 11-0 here, go up through the crystal. The only time you're going to go through the 11-0s again as you're sewing through is when you're going to get ready to do a new unit. So we'll go through this 11-0 here. Now we're going to do another row simply because I'm afraid I might have confused you with my thread issues. So let's go ahead and do another row here just to make sure that you have a good grasp on what we're doing. So we're coming out of our connecting 11-0. We're going to pick up white, 4 crystals, like this. We're going to go into the opposite side of the 11-0. And I'm just going to keep my fingers off so you can see. Pull this down, just like that. Now I'm going to turn my unit, go through the first rondel. I'm sorry, I have to put my thumb and finger over it. It's just the way it works. And then I'm going to go through the next 11-0. Or, excuse me, I'm picking up an 11-0. I'm going to go through the next crystal. Then I'm going to pick up an 11-0. And I'm going to go through the next crystal. Hold on to it and pull the 11-0 down. Then I'm going to pick up another 11-0. And I'm going to go through the crystal. Now I'm going to sew all the way around to this 11-0 so that I can make my next unit, and I'm going to avoid the 11-0s as I sew through. So I'm just going to bypass that 11-0, go into the next crystal, perhaps. Come on, you. And then bypass the 11-0, go into the next crystal, then I'll just bypass this 11-0, go into the next crystal. Now if they're really tight, sometimes they'll lay in there really tight. You can sew through the 11-0s, but it just pulls the unit together nicer if you don't. Then we're going to go through this 11-0 because it is our connecting 11-0. So we're going to go through this one, and we're going to do a blue unit now. So on our second unit here, this is the one that we have to connect to the existing 11-0. So first we pick up 4 of our crystals, just go all the way back around, go into the other side of the 11-0. Bring your crystals down, and now you can see that I need to connect to this bead right here. So I'm going to go through the crystal and the 11-0 right there. Just like that. Then I will go down into the next crystal. Then I will pick up an 11-0 seed bead. Go into the next crystal. Pick up an 11-0 seed bead. Go into the next crystal. Bypass the 11-0s and sew through the crystals until you get all the way to the bottom 11-0 where you will make your next row. So just bypass the 11-0s and sew through these crystals. And now I will go through the bottom 11-0. And I will begin my next unit with 4 white crystals. And we'll just continue doing this exact stitch until we've reached the length that we desire. And I will come back and show you exactly what I have made. Okay, so what I have decided to do is I've gone right to 3 inches, and then my next unit will be over 3 inches. I want to make my bracelet, the body of it, about 6 inches, 6.5, right around there, so I can make my bracelet 7.5 inches. So it depends upon how much room my clasping is going to take up, and it probably take up about an inch, inch and a half. So I have decided that halfway through, which is about the 3-inch mark for me, for the length I want, I'm going to switch my colors. So as you can see, I have red on one side and blue on the other. So I've gone ahead and made my next unit of white that would go right next to my red normally, and then I'm going to do another unit of red, and then I will just switch it to where the red is on this side and the blue is on this side. That way half of my bracelet will have red on one side and blue on the other. So here, instead of picking up my blues like I would normally be doing to continue my pattern, I'm going to pick up my red ones. So I will have a crisscross of red right here. So I'll just go ahead and pick up all 4 of my red ones and go around, whoops, this is the side I'm coming out of, go around and make my unit in red. Continue my patterning and in this manner now. So when I make my next one, I will make blue here and then white here and continue that way. So I've just switched my colors. That way I will have one pattern on one side and the other pattern on the other. And just continue doing exactly the same thing you've been doing, just switch your colors. Okay, so now you can see that I have successfully switched my colors. So now my red is on the bottom instead of my blue, and my blue is on the top. So what I did was I made 11 units. In the 12th unit, I switched my colors, and you can tell because you'll have a diagonal of the two colors that you've switched right in the middle here. So that's on my 12th unit that I switched right here. So I'll make 11 more units on this side with the colors switched. And then I should have a balance on both sides. So that's how you'll do that. And for me, like I said, it was 11 units, and then on my 12th I switched, and now I'll make 11 more units. And I'm counting just single unit, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I'm not counting 2, 4, 6. Even though I have 22 units really, I'm just counting one side. So that's how I come up with the number 11. So go ahead and continue making your pattern, and of course you don't have to do this in red, white, and blue. It can be any color pattern and it would turn out just as pretty. So continue making 11 more units and we'll be back. Okay, so I have gone completely to length, and you can see that my bracelet is right at 6 inches, because with my clasping it's going to add about an inch and a half. This is a 15 millimeter lobster claw clasp, so it's a big one, so it's going to take up some room. If you have a smaller one, then you may want to make another set of your units here, just to make sure that you have enough length in your bracelet. So I've gone 6 inches, that's 22 units counting one side. Now I'm going to see if I can design an ending here. I haven't really done this yet, so kind of bear with me. I don't think I'm going to use an 8/0. Let me see, maybe I will. Let me see how I want to do this. So I'm going to pick up an 11/0. Yeah, I think I will, and an 8/0. And then I'm going to pick up my wire guardian. I'm going to drop this 11/0 and 8/0 down to my piece. So you can see that. Let me get a little closer. And that's what that looks like. Then I'm going to pick up my wire guardian. Now this is a small wire guardian. Let me measure it just because people are going to ask. It's about 4 millimeters in height and about probably 5 across. Let's see. And it's 4 millimeters. It's 4 by 4, and the hole is probably 0.5, something like that. So it's a small wire guardian. I'm going to travel up through one side of the wire guardian. Now you can see there's a little hole in the bottom, and there's a little horseshoe shape with a divot on top. So we're going to go through one side, and then we're going to pull it down to our work. I put my fingers over it like this. So what I'm going to do is I am going to go through this hole here on the other side with my needle, put my thumb over it, hold it, and feel the thread slide down into that divot on top of the horseshoe shape, just like that. Okay? And then I'm going to go back down into the 8/0 seed bead, right beneath it, just like this, and pull my thread through. Make sure that I didn't wrap on anything, because I may have. That's why I like to hold it like this, because I can feel the thread moving around, and I can feel what I'm doing. So now, this is what you have. You have an 11/0, 8/0 wire guardian on top. Go back through the 8/0, and then pick up an 11/0 and go into the 11/0 here. And pull this across. See if it's twisting. I want to untwist it, just like that, so it's nice and neat. And then I can tighten this by sewing back around this entire unit here. So I'm coming out of this 11/0 right here. Let me get into camera here, and I'm just going to go into the crystals again, and I'm going to sew through the 11/0s because it's just hard not to. So I'm just going to sew around all the beads in the unit. So I'm going to hold on to it, I know you guys don't like when I cover it with my fingers, but it's just, I'm making a piece, and that's the way I make it. I apologize, but you know, it's how it's got to be. It is. And I'm going through that crystal, and I'm going to go through this 11-0 right here. Then I'm going to go through this one here. I'm going to work my way over, let's see, do I want to go back up through? Yep, I'm just going to bypass this 11-0. I'm just going to go back up through the way I came to reinforce this. So I'm going to go here. So I'm just going around this entire little flower. Oopsie, sorry, back up just a little. And then I'm going to go up through these two 11-ohs, the 8-0 into the wire guardian, down through this side, and so around this flower, so that I can secure it. And I'll have at least 2 nice passes of thread through it. So now I can just go up into this 11-0 here, and up into the 11-0 above it, into the 8-0, and it should be fine. Yeah. The angle's a little different, but it worked. And then I'm going to go up into the wire guardian on this side, pull it tight, go around the top of the wire guardian. So go into this side, put your thumb and finger together, guide that thread so you can feel it pop into that divot on top. Otherwise it can fall to either side, and then that's not going to work. Then go back into the 8-0, the 11-0, and the 11-0 behind it, and the crystal right on this side, just like this. Push your needle through. So around this flower, or it's not a flower, well, it kind of looks like flowers. So around this unit here. And like I said, you can go ahead and include the 11-ohs as you pass through on these. They're already established pretty much, so you don't have to worry about them losing their shape. They're going to be fine. Make sure that's nice and sturdy. And then I'm just going to, you could go ahead and sew over here and come back through one more time. Maybe we should do that just for the heck of it. So I'm coming out of this 11-0. I'm going to go into this crystal, this white crystal here. It's getting a little thread heavy, so I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go through here. Just feel and just reinforce. That's all I'm doing. So you don't have to do this exactly how I'm doing it. Don't worry if you get a little lost in where I'm going. It doesn't matter. All you need to do is make sure you've reinforced your clasping at least 2 runs of thread through it, okay? And now I'm going to go into this 11-0 here. Between this 11-0 and this crystal, I'm going to put my needle through right here. Between the 2 beads, I'm going to draw down a knot. So I've made a little circle with my thread, and I'm just going to draw a knot down between those 2 beads right there. And then I'm going to sew into this bead here, if I can get into it. And into this 11-0, poke out through the back here. And I'm just going to cut this thread down. And maybe a little more than that. And you can use your thread zapper or a lighter and just get the heat close. Well, this one isn't going to work, so I'll have to do that off camera, I guess, because that's not working and I don't know where my thread zapper is. So I'll just melt that down later. Then what you're going to do, and this is what this looks like, and I hope I was actually in camera. I probably wasn't. But all I have to do now is melt down my little thread tag I left. Now I'm going to put my needle on the other side, and hopefully you left a very long piece of thread to work with. If you did not, then you can always extend it, and I will leave a link that shows how to do that in the description box beneath the video player. But all I'm going to do now is I'm going to put my needle on this side, and I'm going to put my clasping on exactly the same way I did the other side. And so just the wire guardian, the 11/0s and the 8/0, and then we'll come back and we'll connect our actual clasping to the wire guardians. Okay, so I have finished this side, and you can see I finished both sides now, and now I just need my little jump rings and my clasping ends. So I have a big jump ring and a little one, and I have my lobster claw and a little jump ring. And you can see, let me get you close to the end here, you can see that this is pretty darn secure. After I sewed up around it, and then I tied it off just like I did the other side, and they're pretty secure. They do not feel like they're going to come apart. If you feel like you need to sew around it more, then of course you can. Do what you need to do to make it feel secure for you. And then of course you can just sew a clasp right onto here too and not sew on the wire guardian. Just come up through, put your clasp on, go back down around the flower, and sew through again. And you can do that too. You don't have to do it the way I've done it, but I just thought that this would be a little bit different and maybe look kind of cute. So now I'm just going to open one of my small jump rings. Just twist it open from side to side, just like this. I'm going to put it on the wire guardian. I'm going to put my clasp on it, and I'm going to close it. Just the same way I opened it. Just twist it back and make sure it's closed tightly. And then I have my clasping on this side. Done. And then on this side, you can either just attach your big jump ring or you can put a little one with it. And I think a little one with it might be good. I'll have to see. This might be a little big because this is taking up quite a bit of room. But we'll see. If I need to, I can always rearrange my clasping a little bit, or I can even use a smaller lobster claw clasp. I just like these bigger ones because they're easier for me to handle to put on my own wrist. And most of the people I know that wear the jewelry I make like to have a bigger clasp. It's just easier to handle. So I'm going to open this small jump ring and put it on here, and put this one on here, and then close this, and then make sure that this jump ring is closed tight also. Like that. And now I have a bracelet. And actually, it's okay. It's not going to be huge or anything. So I'll put this on. I think I might make a couple of dangles to put on here too. So let me get so I've got a head pin, and I just dropped red, white, and blue on here. And then I'm going to grab my round nose pliers. Oops, and knock over a bunch of stuff on my desk, because you know, gotta do that. Gotta make a huge mess so I can spend an hour cleaning up after myself. Now, I have grabbed it right at the top of the blue crystal, and I'm just going to bend it over the top of my round nose pliers. Then I am going to just turn my wrist so that my round nose pliers are up and down now and right into that bend, just like that. And then I'm going to bring the wire over the top of the round nose pliers, and as I come around, I'll go around the round nose pliers and kind of turn my wrist so that I bring the loop all the way around like this. And then I'll just grab my flat nose pliers, and I will grab onto the loop, and then I will make sure my wire is parallel to my round nose pliers, and grab my chain nose pliers and start to turn a couple of turns. Now I'm doing this with my left hand. I should have changed hands, but I didn't, so you know. And now I can just cut this off see if I can knock over some more stuff trying to find my cutters here. So I'll just use a flush cutter and cut this down and then tuck in the end. Be careful when you do this because these are tiny rondelles, and of course they're glass, so you don't want to crush them. Just do it really carefully. And get you closer. So, see this little tail? I'm just trying to tuck it in very gently so it's not pokey, and that's pretty good. I'll make another one or two of those, and then I'll just open this jump ring again, and I'll slide it on the jump ring, or maybe even on the wire guard. Well, I can't because we could put it on the smaller jump ring here, but I think I'll just put it on the bigger one. And of course you can make this into an extender too. That's open. You can make an extender by putting several jump rings on here so that this will fit a couple different lengths. But I'm just going to open this one and pop a couple of these on. So let me make a couple more. So I've decided just to make two. So I'm just going to open this jump ring here, just like before. Just twist it open. And I'm just going to drop these on here. And hopefully they won't get in the way of my clasping. If they do, then I'll think of something else to do. But at this point, I'm just going to put them right on here. I could always put another little tiny jump ring with these on it, which maybe I'll do that. I am going to open this jump ring, take these off, and put them on a tiny jump ring and attach it to this. And then that way, when I am trying to do my clasping, these won't be in the way so much. They might, but we'll find out. Okay, so I have one of these little jump rings now, and I'm just going to open it. Whoa, yeah. Let's do that again. Let's use a different one. That was fancy. Let's open this one, and we'll drop these two little guys right on here. And then what I am going to do, some expert deduction here, I am going to try to put it on this little jump ring between the wire guardian and the big jump ring. Or you could just put on the wire guardian too, but I don't want to. I'm going to try this and see how this works out. Close this little tiny one here. Sometimes you just have to mess with them until you figure out what's going to work, because you don't know until you try. Make sure this is shut since I messed with it. Okay, so I don't know if I was in camera or not, but all I did was attach the jump ring to this little jump ring that's in between the wire guardian and the big jump ring. And I'm going to put this on my wrist and see how it works. So there it is, and it works fine. See? And like I said, you can always do your clasping a little differently if you'd like. You can use a smaller lobster claw too. That way it won't take up quite as much room. You can just do a few more units and use a smaller lobster claw. You can put more or less dangles. You could put some dangles on this side too, on this one if you'd like. However you'd like to do it. But basically, this is what the bracelet looks like. And there's your clasping. And I think it turned out really pretty. So, there you have it. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. See you later.